Welcome to Dark Conduit, where shadows whisper and the unseen is brought into the eerie light of your screen. Here, we delve into the depths of horror and suspense, narrating tales that will chill your spine and haunt your dreams. Thank you for venturing into the darkness with us. Welcome to the nightmare.
We're thrilled to have you.
When I was 17, I started working at my local grocery store. About 3 weeks in, I got transferred from the front end to produce. In my second week there, while closing alone one night, a girl approached me. With my back turned, I heard her say, "You're new. When did you start?" I turned around, and we began chatting as I finished shelving the last few items from my cart. I had about 10 minutes left on my shift and was eager to head downstairs to crush my boxes, but she continued talking, seemingly oblivious to my social cues that I was trying to leave. Eventually, I grew tired of the conversation and started pulling my cart through the produce section. She followed slowly, still talking. When we reached the employee-only doors, I made my way through and explained that she couldn't come this way and needed to check out as the store was closing soon. She said goodbye and left, and I found the whole interaction odd, but chalked it up to her maybe just being a bit weird. I crushed my boxes, went home, and didn't think much more of it. 2 days later, I was closing again, and the same thing happened. This time, the girl asked for my phone number. I explained that I didn't have a phone at that time, as I had taken the job specifically to save up for one. She then asked if I wanted to hang out after my shift. Feeling a bit sorry for her, as I thought she was just a bit odd and possibly just looking for friends, I told her maybe next time, since my mom was picking me up. So every night I worked, she would come in, buy just one grapefruit, and then walk around, pretending to shop or acting like she was on the phone, and would casually stop by to talk to me. It quickly became tiresome to the point where I started hiding in the hallway and watching her until she left. Eventually, other people at the store heard about her, and rumors started that she was stalking me. The deli manager told me that she and her boyfriend, who also worked in the deli, had been stalked by her for a number of months. Eventually, she stopped coming by at night, as I was always hiding when she did. A few weeks went by, and I had just gotten off work early for a change. My friends were meeting me at the store to hang out afterward, 2 guys and 1 girl. As I headed out to the parking lot to meet them, my stalker suddenly appeared and hugged me, saying she hadn't seen me at work in so long. I mentioned that they had switched my hours, so I wasn't working late anymore. One thing led to another, and my friend, the other girl, started talking to her and inadvertently invited her to hang out with us. Despite my having explained to my friend that this girl was stalking me, she jumped at the opportunity. We all walked back to my friend's house to hang out in the backyard on a nice summer's night. The night wasn't bad. We all just hung out, and I managed to avoid the stalker while my friend kept her entertained. As the night wore on, it quickly became 1 a.m., and my friend's mom came out and told us we had to leave. My 2 male friends, the stalker and I, headed out and were waiting at the bus stop for one friend to catch his bus when the stalker mentioned she couldn't go home this late and needed to stay over. Desperate, I begged my other friend to stay with me, which he agreed to. We waited for the bus to pick up my other friend and then headed to my house. Things got really weird at this point. The stalker refused to sleep on the floor and insisted on sleeping in the bed with me. I eventually gave in, and as my friend slept on the floor, she got into bed with me after taking off her shirt, bra, and pants. I was initially dumbfounded and tried to act as if I hadn't noticed, but then she began trying to kiss me and wanted me to grope her. At this moment, I realized she had some serious issues, whether mental or social, and I didn't want to find out which. I gently pushed her off and told her I was trying to sleep, but she persisted, insisting on cuddling. Fed up, I woke up my friend Nathan. He wasn't really asleep, so when I called him, he sat up. She quickly covered up with a blanket to hide her nudity, and I suggested to Nathan that we go for a walk. I got her to dress, and as we left, I told Nathan to grab his bike. It was almost 3:30 a.m. by then, and as Nathan and I walked with our bikes, the girl walked beside us. I was brainstorming ways to get rid of her. Initially, I suggested that Nathan and I could sneak off to an alley to pee, but she said she was scared and wanted to come along. As we continued walking and talking, she mentioned that she had been on the track team in high school. "Oh, you run track? I bet you can't beat us to the end of the block," I said. At this point, Nathan looked at me and smirked, knowing we were about to ditch this girl. Even though it was 3:30 a.m., she was incredibly excited to sprint. She took off running towards the end of the block, and we immediately headed in the opposite direction back towards my house. We rushed inside, hid our bikes in the house instead of on the porch, and went to the living room, making sure not to turn on any lights. We sat there, talking about how crazy the situation was when she started banging on my door. We stayed quiet, enduring what seemed like 2 or 3 hours of her banging on the door, talking to herself, then banging again and talking more. Eventually, we heard the downstairs door open and watched her leave. I lived on the second floor of an apartment building, and my mom was out of town at the time. For the next several days after our initial encounter, I didn't see her at work, which was a relief. About a week later, however, she came into the store again. This time, she completely ignored me, grabbing a grapefruit and pretending to browse as a coworker, and I chatted. Dressed casually and carrying a backpack, she abruptly cut between us, even though we were standing about 6 feet apart. As she turned away, her backpack brushed against my flat cart. Suddenly, she spun around, screaming, and furiously threw boxes off my cart. Juices, tomatoes, and other items flew everywhere. She accused me of grabbing her and demanded to speak with a manager. My coworker, a calm older man in his 40s, advised me to step away and go downstairs. I retreated to the break room to avoid escalating the situation further. About 10 minutes later, I was summoned to the hallway where my store manager was finishing his discussion with the woman. I caught a glimpse of her storming out before the manager approached me from my side of the story. After he spoke with my coworker and heard the consistent accounts, he reassured me, "Don't worry about it. She's just troubled." The woman eventually stopped bothering me, especially after my girlfriend started working at the store. Whenever the woman saw us together, she would head directly to my girlfriend's checkout lane, where she was noticeably rude to her. But after a while, she ceased coming to the store. From what I've seen on Facebook, she seems to have moved on and is now married to a much older man. To the girl who stalked me, let's never meet again. Back in 2008, I was a student planning to go to university and needed some extracurricular stuff I could put on my entry applications. As most UK students know, one of the best to have on there is the Duke of Edinburgh Award. As part of this award, you have to embark on an orienteering expedition, basically a long trek through woodland and rural villages, following nothing but a map and compass, no GPS allowed. It's a teamwork experience, and you camp and overcome hurdles together, etc. Anyway, I was out of shape at the time, and so my uncle volunteered to take me out to the middle of nowhere to get some idea of what orienteering was like. We didn't stay out overnight like what I would have to during the real thing, but we hiked maybe 10 miles through woods and a small village in pretty abysmal weather. By the end of the journey, we were soaked to the bone and pretty miserable, looking forward to getting back to the car and heading home. For the last part of the journey, we were on a dirt trail heading uphill with bushes and trees either side. We were marching onward in silence at this point when all of a sudden there was a rustling in the foliage to our left. From behind a large bush stepped an old man in a black suit with a red bow tie and dress shoes. He looked late 70s/early 80s, very pale, liver spots dotting his face, and a gray-white comb-over. I was instantly weirded out. Who dresses like that to go into the woods? The instant thought, seeing a guy his age out there in those clothes in those weather conditions, was, this guy has lost his marbles. There was something else that took me an extra moment to notice, though, that puzzled me. The guy was bone dry, didn't even have mud on his shoes. We stopped in our tracks and just stared at the man for a moment, who appeared to be as frozen and shocked at seeing us. My uncle made the first move, taking a step towards him, asking him if he was all right. The old man continued to stare for a moment, not moving even a twitch, then became suddenly very animated. It was like he suddenly snapped out of trance. He started flailing his arms wildly, saying something awful had happened, that a good friend of his needed help. He began walking backwards into the woods, motioning for us to follow him, which we did. We started off at a brisk walk, then escalated to running as we struggled to keep up with the old man. After maybe a minute, he disappeared ahead of us, but we could hear him, so continued to follow the noise until we reached a huge slope. We stopped at the edge and looked down to see the old man standing at the bottom, motioning us, pleading with us to follow him. I remember looking down, and the slope was probably at a 40-degree angle, spanned for perhaps 50 feet or more, and slick with mud. It looked like an accident waiting to happen, especially given there were no shrubs or roots to hold onto or anything. I remember looking down at the old man on the other side of the slope and wondering, how the heck did he cross that so quickly and so cleanly? I mean, at that distance, it is hard to see fine detail clearly, but I swear he still did not appear to be wet or muddy at all. Me and my uncle looked at each other, and I saw that he was getting as weirded out as I was. Despite my feelings, I made a step toward the edge and was going to try and make my way down when my uncle grabbed me firmly by the arm and pulled me back. Under his breath, he said to me, "Something's wrong here." We took a few steps back from the edge at this point, and the old man at the bottom started getting irate. He began pleading with us again to come down the slope, telling us he needed our help. His friend was in trouble. My uncle shouted down to the old man that we would head back to our car and call emergency services for him, that professional help would be on its way soon, that they would have all the tools to help him, etc. The old man suddenly got furious. He began jumping up and down, demanding that we come down the slope right now, or there would be hell to pay. His voice had changed drastically. He was practically growling his words, his hands bunched up into fists, pounding his knees like an angry toddler throwing a tantrum. I've never seen a grown adult fly into such a rage in my life. His eyes looked like they were on the verge of bursting out of their sockets, his skin gone from pale to red in almost an instant. We began to hurriedly make our way back the way we came, his demands and threats getting less audible as we got closer to the trail. Once on the trail, we practically marched the remaining quarter-mile or so to the car. All the while my uncle was on the phone to the emergency services, explaining to them that there was a possible mentally ill old man wandering the trail. We were ordered to get to our car and await the police so we could show them where we had encountered him. About an hour later, we met 4 officers, 2 whom had dogs with them and packs of supplies like first aid, emergency blankets, etc. We lead them to the exact spot and then pointed the 2 officers with dogs in the direction he led us through the bushes. The search lasted all weekend, but there was no trace of the old man. Officers said the only trail they could pick up had been mine and my uncle's. They didn't find any footprints or anything belonging to the old man we encountered. One of my weirdest experiences to date. As our journey through the shadows comes to a close, we want to extend a heartfelt thank you for watching. Your presence illuminates the darkest corners of our tales, and it's you, our brave viewers, who make Dark Conduit truly alive. Remember, if tonight's tale has left a whisper in your ear or a shadow in your heart, support us by hitting that like button and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Every like, comment, and share helps us keep the lanterns burning and the stories flowing. And if you haven't yet, consider subscribing to become a permanent traveler in our eerie adventures. Until next time, keep the lights dim and your curiosity alight. Thank you, and good night from Dark Conduit.